Many of you know I'm from Southern California, and when I say I'm from Southern California, a lot of people have this picture in your heads. That is not my hometown. My hometown is Apple Valley, California, and don't let the name fool you, there are no apples in Apple Valley. There was an apple tree once, but it died because this is what the area looks like. And it's hard for you to see, but there's a blue sky, and there's nothing but brown underneath. Nothing but brown underneath. There are actually houses there, but if you look very carefully, there is nothing living. Just brown. It's just dirt as far as the eye can see. It's a part of California called the Mojave Desert. And in the Mojave Desert, they grow things like Joshua trees and cactus. And it is a weird, wild, hot, dry place. I remember sitting in my car at one point in time listening to the radio, and the guy on the radio was talking about how it was 110 degrees. And I was thinking to myself, this is kind of nice. Because there was something about that dry, hot sauna heat that people pay money for, you know. But here, you know, in the Midwest, it's like 80 degrees and 90% humidity. And I'm just dying. But anyway, so the desert, it's dry. That's the thing I'm trying to get at. It's drier than dry. In fact, it's so dry that I learned when I was out there the dangers of thirst. My mom drilled it into me, time and time again, that if you're thirsty, you can die. And I was frightened of that. I was literally frightened of dying of thirst. Because, you know, in the desert, apparently you can lose water just by sweating. Just by living, you can just lose water. And so I would talk to my mom about this, and she would tell me stories about people who left children in the cars with the windows rolled halfway down, and when they come back to the car, the kids are dead, and the dogs left in the car are dead. And I mean, this is tragic to me. People die from heat and thirst. So we took a family car trip one year, and we were in a motorhome driving through Texas, and the air conditioning went out, and the motorhome broke down. And so we're on the side of the road, no air conditioning, no engine, on the side of the road waiting for a tow truck to come. And all I can think about is that we are inside a vehicle, and it's dry and hot, and we are all going to die. And so my mom brings out a bag of pretzels, and I don't know what she was thinking, but she said that salt will retain the water in us, and we won't sweat so much. If we have extra salt in our system, the water will stay in our system. So we're eating salty pretzels with no water in this dry Texas air-conditionless heat, and I literally was afraid for my life until the tow truck came and took us to the gas station, whereupon my mom bought me a soda, and all was well with the world. So I made it, I survived, I'm glad about that. But there's a second lesson that I learned when I was living out in the desert. And that is that mirages are real. Have you ever seen a mirage? Here in the Midwest, you can sometimes see them on the roads. Like in the middle of the summer when it's really hot, sometimes you can look down an asphalt road, and way off in the distance you can see like this little shimmery thing on the ground. You know, and it's just kind of shimmery, and if you're a child you could say, is that a puddle of water up there? And adults, you know, we think we know better. But I'm serious, in the desert you actually can see these massive mirages where it looks like the entire horizon is a lake. And if you see how it's shimmering, it sometimes looks like there are trees that are sort of out there, way off on the horizon. And the trees are like palm trees just kind of growing up, and you really think there's an oasis out there. Now, I've never actually been fooled by it because I was old enough when I saw this thing to know what it really was. But as a child, I said to my dad, "Now, what is going on out there?" And he says, "That's a mirage." And I said, "Mirage? I thought that was only in cartoons." He said, "No, they're real. They actually are real. But don't let it fool you. It's not water." And the thing that I've realized, as I kind of extrapolate from my youth, is that those moments in life when we get really, really thirsty for something, it's very easy for us to get fooled by a mirage. If you want to take notes, we have the blanks on your note sheet that you can fill in here. And so it should come up on the screen. There you go. Here's the first one. Thirsty people can be fooled by mirages. And the only reason I bring that up is that if in your life you have a thirst that you don't address well, if you don't deal with your thirst well in an appropriate way, then sometime you may find yourself drinking from a mirage. Drinking from a source that you think is going to provide you some sort of refreshment, and yet it doesn't. I mean, we try this all the time. People are thirsty for love, and so they watch romantic comedies. People are thirsty for excitement, and so they jump out of airplanes. I don't get that, sorry. It's just crazy to me. I know someone in this room who jumped in an airplane, but you can talk to that person later on and squirt her with a water gun. But people will look for refreshment in all sorts of different ways if they're thirsty for something. And the problem is that most of our human sources of refreshment are simply mirages. They're simply things that don't give us fulfillment. And so today we're going to look at a passage of Scripture where we find some thirsty people and see what they're trying to do to find refreshment. For all this month, we're going to be talking about this theme of refreshment and what it means to get the refreshment that God offers us and how to get it and all those kinds of things. So for some of you who know me, a lot of this story today is going to be a little bit of familiarity, a little bit of review, but I think it's good enough for us to go ahead and hit it again. So if you've got the Bibles we passed out, turn to page 738. If you've got a Bible where you know where stuff is, it's John chapter 4, beginning in verse 1. We're going to read all the way through verse 42. As you're flipping there, I want you to just let your mind kind of wander about what are the things in my life that I'm thirsty for? What are the things in my life that I feel like God needs to sort of move in and bring some refreshment? Here we are, John chapter 4, beginning in verse 1. The Pharisees, a group of people who were like religious fanatics and didn't so much like what Jesus was doing, the Pharisees heard that Jesus was gaining and baptizing more disciples than John. Although in fact it was not Jesus who baptized, but his disciples. When the Lord learned of this, he left Judea and went back once more to Galilee. Now, he had to go through Samaria, so he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there. Now, just so you remember, Jacob, Joseph, these guys are from the Old Testament. There's Abraham, and then he had a son Isaac, and then Isaac had a son Jacob, and then Jacob had a son Joseph. And Jacob had dug a well that he then later gave to Joseph, and that's this well. So it's like thousands of years old. Jacob's well was there. And Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about the 6th hour. 6th hour from daybreak, that means it's noon. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" His disciples had gone into the town to buy food. Now,